A 911 emergency call was received. Upon arrival at the scene, responders found Alex standing near the entrance of the apartment building. He appeared visibly distressed. His rapid pacing and anxious glances revealed a mounting sense of fear and urgency. What lay beyond the doorway would leave a lasting impression on everyone involved. The apartment, once neatly arranged and tastefully furnished, was now in a state of complete disarray. Then came the moment no one ever wants to face. In the bedroom, on the bed, they found Christina. Christina Carlin Craft entered the world on July 11, 1981, born into a loving, tight-knit family that valued resilience, togetherness, and personal strength. Her early childhood was marked by joy and the warm presence of a devoted mother and father. Christina's home was a space filled with laughter, sibling companionship, and the protective embrace of a caring household. However, life dealt the family a devastating blow in 1990 when Christina was just 9 years old. Her beloved mother tragically passed away after a sudden illness, leaving behind a void that no one could fully fill. After finishing high school, Christina took her first step into adulthood by accepting a job as a waitress at a coastal casino. While this was not her ultimate dream, it was a critical stepping stone that allowed her to gain life experience, independence, and self-discipline. The buzzing world of casinos, filled with characters from all walks of life, taught her important lessons in people skills and perseverance. Beneath the surface, however, Christina was fueled by a greater ambition. With her striking looks, magnetic presence, and confident poise, she longed for a life in the spotlight. Her dream wasn't just to be seen, it was to be recognized, celebrated, and respected in the world of high fashion and modeling. It was during the summer of 2003, in the vibrant and unpredictable atmosphere of the casino, that Christina's life took a new turn. One evening, she caught the attention of a sharply dressed and poised investor. Their conversation was brief but impactful, and it wasn't long before Christina found herself mingling with well-connected individuals in the business world. Among them was Alex Chiotelli, a prominent banker with a composed demeanor and thoughtful charm. Unlike many who admired Christina from afar, Alex saw her for who she truly was: intelligent, driven, and determined. Their connection deepened quickly, and what began as an intriguing encounter blossomed into a deep and meaningful relationship. Christina and Alex's bond grew stronger with each passing year. For 14 years, they shared their lives, supporting each other through various highs and lows. They lived together in Ardmore as true partners, though Christina wasn't in a rush to start a family. Her goals remained centered around self-fulfillment and professional achievement. Alex, understanding and supportive, never pressured her. Instead, he encouraged her aspirations. Christina, driven by childhood dreams, pursued modeling with renewed vigor. She had dabbled in the field when she was younger, landing a few small gigs. But now, with Alex's unwavering support and her own matured self-confidence, opportunities began arriving more consistently. Christina had her sights set on something specific: the iconic world of Playboy, a magazine known for launching the careers of countless models. For her, being featured in Playboy wasn't merely about glamour. It represented the apex of success, the moment when all her years of perseverance would pay off. She submitted her portfolio, joining the ranks of thousands of hopeful women across the country who dreamed of being noticed. Against all odds, she received a call that would forever remain etched in her memory. In early 2009, Christina was informed that she had been selected as Playboy's Girl of the Week, a prestigious spotlight that introduced models to the magazine's vast readership. The shoot was scheduled for May 4th, 2009, and everything about it, lighting, styling, and atmosphere, felt magical. Though it was not the full feature or cover story she longed for, it was a significant achievement and a stepping stone in the right direction. Christina gave the shoot her all, and the results were stunning. She radiated charisma and elegance, capturing the attention of industry insiders. That single feature opened up doors to an entirely new world. Christina was suddenly invited to high-profile events, mingling with actors, musicians, and public figures. She even received recognition from Hugh Hefner himself, who acknowledged her potential and welcomed her into the Playboy circle. It seemed like her dream life was finally within reach. Yet, despite the excitement and momentum, a new challenge emerged, one that Christina couldn't control. At the time of her photo shoot, she was already 26 years old. In the fast-paced and often youth-obsessed world of modeling, age was a major factor. Industry insiders subtly signaled that her window of opportunity might be closing. Though she continued to strive for that elusive cover feature, it never materialized. Still, Christina was not one to dwell in disappointment. She refused to let one door closing define her. With her characteristic determination, she pivoted toward new creative pursuits, exploring acting, business ventures, and other artistic outlets. She attended auditions at some of the most competitive agencies in the United States. Though feedback on her talent and appearance were consistently positive, landing the right role remained elusive. At times, it seemed her association with Playboy, while glamorous, carried certain stigmas in more conservative industries. As her public profile grew, Christina also encountered a darker side of fame. After her appearance in Playboy, she began receiving unwanted attention. While many fans were kind and respectful, others became intrusive and obsessive. It was a distressing realization that being in the spotlight could attract individuals with ill intentions. Christina, ever resilient, tried to maintain her normal life, but the psychological toll was real. Then came August 21st, 2018, a date that would mark a turning point. Alex had to travel to New York on business. It wasn't an unusual trip. He frequently traveled for work and trusted that Christina, familiar with managing things on her own, would be perfectly fine during a short absence. That evening, as per their routine, Alex tried to call her to say goodnight. When she didn't pick up, he wasn't immediately alarmed. Christina often had a busy schedule and could easily have been at a social gathering or simply asleep. But by the next morning, concern began to set in. Repeated calls went unanswered. Christina's phone remained silent, something highly uncharacteristic for someone who was almost always accessible. Alex's unease grew steadily throughout the day. Though he attempted to focus on meetings and professional commitments, a nagging sense of dread began to cloud his mind. By evening, worry had transformed into panic. This wasn't like her. He decided to cut his trip short and rush back to their shared apartment in Ardmore. When Alex finally arrived at the building that warm August evening, the clock was approaching 9 p.m. The sun had long dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the quiet, tree-lined street of Ardmore's affluent residential neighborhood. It was a place known for its manicured lawns, serene sidewalks, and a sense of unshakable calm. But that night, something felt deeply, disturbingly off. With rising concern, Alex reached the front door of the apartment he shared with Christina. He fumbled through his keyring, trying to insert the familiar brass key into the lock, but it wouldn't turn. Perplexed, he tried again, and again, still nothing. The key, which had always opened the door without trouble, now didn't fit. For a brief moment, Alex hoped that perhaps Christina had simply locked the door from the inside, using the deadbolt. Maybe she had fallen asleep, he told himself. Maybe she was in the shower, or perhaps she had simply misplaced her phone and didn't hear the calls. But deep down, Alex knew this wasn't right. The silence on the other end of his repeated phone calls all day had planted a seed of dread that now bloomed into full-fledged alarm. He knocked firmly, then pounded harder, calling out Christina's name several times. No response. Not a single sound came from inside. The building's walls seemed to close in with an eerie stillness. Left with no other choice, Alex called the police. The dispatcher on the line took down the address and details with professional calm. But when officers were first dispatched, there was a noticeable delay in their urgency. The neighborhood was considered low risk, and officers were used to responding to noise complaints, lost pets, or false alarms. However, one of the patrol officers who reviewed the address had a sharp memory. He suddenly recalled that just 4 days earlier, he had personally responded to a report of a robbery at that exact location. Christina had filed that report herself, describing strange events and missing items. This new call now seemed far more serious. The possibility that the previous incident could be connected to something more dangerous gripped the officer. The pieces started forming a troubling pattern, one that could no longer be ignored. Could the intruder have returned? Could the situation have escalated into something truly catastrophic? Officers were promptly rerouted to the address. When they arrived, they found Alex waiting near the entrance of the building, visibly shaken, his pacing betrayed by increasing worry. As he recounted his attempts to reach Christina and the strange malfunctioning of the key, the officers decided to act immediately. They announced their presence loudly, then forcibly broke down the door when there was still no response. What awaited them inside would etch itself into their memories forever. The apartment, once tastefully decorated and pristine, was in disarray. Furniture had been upended, drawers pulled out and emptied onto the floor. A large decorative mirror in the hallway was shattered, its jagged pieces reflecting fractured glimpses of the scene. The sense of chaos was palpable. And then came the discovery no one wanted to make. In the bedroom, on the bed, they found Christina. The scene was disturbing, but not something we need to sensationalize. What mattered now was justice, and it had to be swift and thorough. As protocol dictated, the partner, Alex, was treated as a person of interest. That night, while investigators processed the apartment, officers gently informed Alex of what had been discovered. His reaction was instant and heartbreaking. He collapsed into a chair in disbelief, unable to form coherent sentences. His shock was unmistakable, his grief unfiltered. He was taken to the station for questioning, a routine step in such cases. Over the next 90 minutes, detectives carefully reviewed his alibi. Alex's whereabouts during the day were corroborated by travel logs, hotel check-in data, and phone records. Surveillance footage from the hotel lobby and business meetings verified everything. There was no room for doubt. Alex had nothing to do with what had happened. He was undeniably a grieving partner and not a suspect. With that avenue closed, investigators had to start from the beginning. How could such a crime occur in one of the city's safest neighborhoods? Who could have done this, and why? Detectives immediately turned to Christina's recent police report. The timing was far too close to be a coincidence. 4 days earlier, on August 18th, Christina had come to the station and reported an alarming experience. She explained that she had gone out the night before, Friday, August 17th, to a popular downtown bar. It was a weekend tradition for her, a way to unwind and enjoy a night out with friends or new acquaintances. She was known to be cautious, never reckless, but something had gone terribly wrong that night. Christina told officers she had arrived home around 3 a.m. the next morning. When she woke up hours later, it was not in her bed, but sprawled on the cold floor of her apartment. Her head was pounding with a violent headache, and she felt a strange, disoriented fog clouding her memory. She couldn't recall how she got home or anything past a certain point in the night. Alarmed, she searched her apartment, only to discover that several items were missing. Her report detailed what she believed had been stolen: high-end designer handbags, several pieces of fine jewelry, a collection of expensive shoes, and a number of credit cards. Christina was convinced she had been drugged at the bar, perhaps with something slipped into her drink, and then robbed while unconscious. She had no memory of giving anyone access to her apartment. A crucial clue surfaced in the report. Christina remembered taking a taxi home. The driver she noted was a man in his early 30s, clean-shaven, polite, and driving a dark-colored vehicle. Thanks to the timestamps from her phone and traffic cameras along the route, detectives were able to trace the car and retrieve footage of the drop-off. The quality of the video was grainy but usable. With the driver partially visible in the frame, investigators released the footage to the public, appealing for any information that could help identify the man. Simultaneously, detectives began digging deeper into Christina's digital presence. She was highly active on social media, where she had thousands of followers and often posted about her professional and personal life. Through this digital footprint, authorities discovered a past incident from 2016 that had raised some eyebrows at the time. News archives documented a minor but noteworthy confrontation at an upscale Manhattan restaurant. According to the report, Christina had argued with the restaurant manager. She was arrested that night, a humiliating experience for someone already wary of media attention. However, thanks to Alex's influence, legal support, and diligent efforts, the issue was resolved quietly. Christina was released on 6 months probation with no lasting damage to her record. The incident had since been buried in the past, or so it seemed. During the murder investigation, detectives briefly explored the possibility that the former restaurant employee might have harbored resentment. However, this theory didn't hold up under scrutiny. The suspect had left the hospitality industry years ago, had no known contact with Christina since the altercation, and appeared to have no motive to seek revenge. With no further evidence linking him to the case, that lead was quickly discarded. Attention soon turned to Christina's more recent life in Ardmore. While she had moved there in search of peace and a quieter environment, it hadn't been an easy adjustment. Christina had always thrived in vibrant, bustling social scenes. The calm streets of suburban Ardmore felt confining to someone used to the bright lights of city nightlife and the buzzing atmosphere of red carpet events. Though she tried to adapt, friends recalled that she often felt isolated and restless. As investigators delved deeper into her background, they came across Christina's modeling history, specifically her appearance in Playboy. To detectives, this was a crucial discovery. It wasn't uncommon for models in the public eye to attract unwanted attention. Cases involving stalking, impersonation, and data breaches were tragically frequent. Christina had created several professional accounts across multiple modeling platforms to market her portfolio. Investigators theorized that one of those public accounts might have exposed personal information or attracted someone with malicious intentions. Around the same time, detectives began reviewing Christina's financial activity. They traced her credit card usage and discovered something deeply troubling. Less than 24 hours after her death, one of her cards had been used at a grocery store located just a few blocks from her apartment. Surveillance footage revealed the individual who made the purchase. It was the same taxi driver Christina had taken a ride with on the night of her reported robbery, a man named Andre Melton. Armed with this information, detectives wasted no time. They secured a search warrant for Andre's residence and an arrest warrant on charges of burglary and unauthorized card use. But when police arrived at his address, Andre was gone. He had fled the scene, possibly after sensing that the law was closing in. Despite his absence, the search of his home was revealing. Inside, officers recovered numerous personal belongings that had been reported missing from Christina's apartment. Luxury handbags, designer shoes, high-end jewelry, and more. However, recovering stolen property was no longer their priority. The urgency now centered on apprehending a suspect potentially connected to a far more serious crime. Meanwhile, the medical examiner's report had been finalized and delivered. The findings confirmed what detectives had feared from the outset. Christina's death was officially ruled a homicide. The cause of death and details of the assault were left undisclosed in media briefings out of respect for the family and to maintain the integrity of the ongoing investigation. Still, this report confirmed the most serious suspicion. Christina hadn't died by accident or misadventure. She had been intentionally harmed. As investigators combed through hours of surveillance footage from Christina's apartment building and surrounding areas, they made another startling discovery. A second man was captured entering the building shortly before the suspected time of the crime. He was approximately the same age and build as Andre Melton, but clearly a different person. More importantly, while both men were recorded entering the building, neither was seen exiting. This mystery man instantly became the investigation's new focal point. His image was enhanced and released to the public, along with a plea for any information. As with many high-profile cases, the circulation of these photos across news networks and social media had an almost immediate impact. On August 22nd, just one day after the public release of the footage, a surprising call came into the police station. It was from Andre Melton himself. Clearly shaken by seeing his face aired on television alongside an unnamed second suspect, Andre reached out to clarify his involvement. During the tense phone call, he admitted to the break-in on August 18th. He confessed to stealing items from Christina's apartment, but insisted he had no part in her murder. According to him, the night he robbed her, Christina had still been alive. He refused to turn himself in, however, fearful that he would be wrongly charged with the killing. The manhunt for Andre continued, now complicated by this partial confession. Then came a strange twist in the case, one that originated from an unexpected place. On October 26, over 2 months after Christina's death, a new tip surfaced. A man contacted authorities and claimed he had recognized the face of the unknown second suspect from the surveillance footage shown in the news. This wasn't a casual acquaintance. The caller said that he had recently been institutionalized in a psychiatric facility, and during his stay, he had shared a ward with the man in question. According to the witness, The man, whose name he did not know, had been admitted following a violent incident involving an attack on a woman. His behavior was volatile, and the staff had kept a close watch on him for 3 days before his discharge. But during their time together, the two had spoken. The witness recalled a disturbing conversation in which the patient described having plans to visit a woman he had met online. The details, though vague at the time, now seem chillingly specific in hindsight. Detectives rushed to the clinic to gather more information. They needed a name, a diagnosis, anything that could help identify this individual. What they found was deeply frustrating. The facility had failed to verify the man's full identity before discharging him, and the paper trail was non-existent. The hospital had released him with no documented follow-up. The lead had seemingly hit a dead end, but fate intervened. On August 29, just as it seemed the case might go cold again, another breakthrough occurred. A man came forward claiming to recognize the unknown suspect. He identified the man as Jonathan Wesley Harris, a 31-year-old recently released from prison. Harris had served time for a violent offense classified as a particularly serious felony. Alarmingly, he had only been out of prison for about a month when Christina was killed. With this new information, detectives sprang into action. They contacted everyone who might have known Harris: friends, neighbors, former parole officers, and family. Eventually, they reached his sister. After some hesitation, she revealed that Jonathan had left Philadelphia recently. According to her, he had boarded a bus headed for Pittsburgh. Law enforcement moved swiftly. They alerted local agencies along the suspected travel route and worked with the transit company to intercept the vehicle. When the bus finally arrived in Pittsburgh, officers surrounded it. They observed the passengers disembarking carefully. Jonathan Wesley Harris was the third person to step off the bus. He was taken into custody without resistance. The officers didn't press him immediately. They laid out a photograph, one that showed Christina in a candid, smiling moment, radiant and full of life. Jonathan glanced at the photo. After a few seconds, he nodded and spoke in a low voice. He claimed that he had met Christina in a bar several nights before her death. According to him, they had struck up what seemed like a casual conversation. They chatted for a while, and at some point during the evening, she agreed to leave the bar with him. He said they took a taxi together back to her apartment. From there, his story took a darker and more confusing turn. Jonathan alleged that after they arrived at Christina's home, he requested a payment, specifically $1,200, for what he vaguely described as services and substances. Jonathan claimed that at one point, in the middle of the argument, he briefly restrained Christina. He insisted that afterward, he had a change of heart. According to him, he told her he wanted to calm things down, untie her, and simply leave. He said that Christina appeared to agree. But when he loosened the restraints, she didn't wait. Instead, she immediately ran for the door, likely trying to escape. Jonathan said he chased after her, and then, in his words, something terrible happened. He offered no specifics, only vague phrases that avoided directly addressing the level of violence or the final outcome. Investigators took note of this evasion. After the incident, Jonathan claimed he panicked. He searched the apartment, allegedly hoping to find valuables that would help him recoup what he said he had lost during the night. But nothing of significant value turned up. He reportedly took some clothing, which he later used to change out of his own, in a clear attempt to avoid being recognized on any nearby security footage. The police would later determine that Jonathan had exited the apartment not through the front door, but by climbing out onto the balcony, an effort that appeared both desperate and calculated. He had left the apartment without being seen by the building's security cameras, reinforcing the theory that he had planned his escape with at least some level of awareness. In follow-up interviews and under repeated questioning, Jonathan maintained his stance that he had not intended to harm Christina. As the case moved toward trial, Jonathan's legal team attempted to mount a defense focused on diminished responsibility. They argued that the incident was not first-degree murder, but rather a crime committed under the influence of substances and mental instability. They proposed that at most, he was guilty of involuntary manslaughter, a crime committed in the heat of the moment without clear intent. They even revisited Jonathan's time in the psychiatric hospital, emphasizing his unstable behavior and erratic conversations as indicators that he was not in full control of his faculties. But the prosecution presented a clear, forceful rebuttal. They pointed to several key facts: Jonathan's decision to flee the city after the incident, his initial refusal to turn himself in, and the series of lies he told during his confession. Most critically, the prosecution reminded the jury that Jonathan never had to be there in the first place. There was no legal or personal obligation that bound him to Christina. The moment he felt angry or rejected, he could have walked away. Instead, he stayed. He cornered, he controlled, and ultimately, a woman lost her life. The prosecutors also referenced statements made by a witness who had briefly shared a ward with Jonathan at the psychiatric facility. That witness remembered Jonathan speaking in disturbingly casual terms about following women. Though these statements could not be linked to other crimes definitively, they contributed to a growing sense of unease around Jonathan's motives. The jury took everything into account: the evidence, the testimony, the contradictory statements, and the failed attempts at deflection. After deliberating, the verdict was delivered. Jonathan Wesley Harris was found guilty on all counts: first-degree intentional murder, kidnapping, theft, escape, and obstruction of justice. The sentence reflected the gravity of the crime. He received life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 22.5 years for the related charges.